is sponsored by TechTime Radio. Visit them online at techtimeradio.com.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, have you ever heard of turbo debt?
No, what is that? Something to get me into debt faster?
No, turbo debt is not to get you in debt faster. It's to help you get out of debt. Do you have over $10,000 in credit card, personal loans, medical, or payday loans?
Of course I have debt. That's the American way.
Au contraire, mon frere. Turbo debt will give you the option to break the debt cycle and start putting money in your pocket.
That's awesome.
Over 70% of Americans die with credit card debt. Do not let this happen to you. Turbo debt will give you an option to break the debt cycle and start putting money in your pocket.
That's awesome.
If you have over $10,000 in credit card debt and personal loans, medical or payday loans, they can help. Go to turbodebt.com/techtime. Again, that's turbodebt.com/techtime, all capitalized, for a free consultation today. TurboDebt is a proud sponsor of this week's episode of Tech Time Radio.
Broadcasting across the nation from the East Coast to the West, keeping you up to date on technology while enjoying a little whiskey on the side, with leading-edge topics, along with special guests, to navigate technology in a segmented, stylized radio program. The information that will make you go, Mmm. Pull up a seat, raise a glass with our hosts as we spend the next hour talking about technology for the common person. Welcome to Tech Time Radio with Nathan Mumm.
Welcome to Tech Time with Nathan Mumm, the show that makes you go, Technology news of the week, the show for the everyday person talking about technology, broadcasting across the nation with insightful segments on subjects weeks ahead of the mainstream media. We welcome our radio audience of 35 million listeners to an hour of insightful technology news. Each week, our show covers the weekly top technology subjects without a political agenda. We verify the facts, and we do it with a sense of humor in less than 60 minutes, and of course, with a little whiskey on the side. We are live streaming during our show on 5 of the most popular platforms. Well, 4 of the most popular platforms and one that's kind of a borderline platform. So that one will be X if you're listening to us on X or Twitter. Best of luck. Depends on if you have a premium subscription today or not. But if you are, we welcome you. If not, you can always go to the free version on YouTube and twitch.tv, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We encourage you to visit us online at techtimeradio.com and become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/TechTime Radio. I'm Nathan Mumm, your host, a technologist with 30 years of technology expertise, working for Fortune 500 companies across the country. One of those companies that I worked for, we're going to be talking a lot about today. So let me tell you about that. Now, today in the studio, our co-host, normally Mike Raday, is not with us. So we have our whiskey connoisseur, Mark Gregoire, that is a part of our show today.
Well, thank you, Nathan.
Yes?
I have to congratulate you.
Well, what's that?
For hitting your anniversary of the Demi-Semi-Sepcentennial.
Oh, is that 175?
It is.
Okay.
Or you can call it the Quattro Sepcentennial. Either one works.
Oh, do you realize that we are starting our 4th year in the technology show?
I know.
For all those that are listening to us for the first time today, thank you for listening to our show.
We appreciate you listening to us.
And hopefully you stay through the whole show. And if you're a longtime listener, then you'll be excited to know that Nick Espinoza is going to be on. So you can always all get excited about that. And Mark is here to fill in for Mike.
Thank you. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit like, subscribe.
That's right. And hit all the other additional, if you're watching it on LinkedIn, put a comment in. And of course, Mark is our whiskey connoisseur. He's a senior technical executive with 30-year records of establishing, implementing, and refining cutting-edge solutions to address business needs and optimize opportunities in the print business. He's a skilled whiskey drinker and our pick of the day expert. We are friends from different backgrounds, but bring the best technology show possible every week for our family, friends, and fans to enjoy. Welcome, everyone. Let's start today's show.
Now on today's show.
All right. Odie's already laughing at me. Okay. Today on Tech Time with Nathan Mumm, Google says AI, too important not to get right. We're going to be talking about that in our lead story. And then we're going to be talking about the European Union boss tells Musk, Zuckerberg, and TikTok chief that misinformation will no longer be tolerated. So social media, they're going to have to tell the truth. Oh, boy. Next, we looked at the Hamas hijacked victims with their social media accounts being used to spread terror. We have fake rocket attempts going on in an FTX mess that Nick Espinoza is going to put all of that together in his show and kind of explain all of that. So FTX
I'm excited about that.
Interesting. And Lots of stuff's going on again with the war. We talked about that last week, some of the technology stuff, but Nick's going to dive into that. Then Microsoft removed the Bing Chat AI image generator after Mickey Mouse 9/11 picture surfaced. We're going to explain what happened and how this was actually created. And then finally, Microsoft completed its $6.9 billion takeover of Activision and Blizzard. In addition, of course, we have the technology fail of the week and a Nathan Nugget, and as always, our pick of the day whiskey tasting. During the commercial as well, pre-show also, we are going to taste our selected pick of the day, and it'll either get a 0, 1, or 2 thumbs up at the end of the show. We were sipping a little early today.
We did start a little early.
So
I'm sure my wife is laughing at us out there.
All right, so sit back, raise a glass, and welcome to Tech Time with Nathan Mumm. Now, it's time for the latest headlines in the world of technology.
Here are our top technology stories of the week.
All right, story number 1. Google boss says AI is too important not to get right. Let's go to our UK reporter, David Winman, for more on the story.
Google boss Matt Brittin says, AI too important not to get right. It has the potential for huge breakthroughs across industries, said the president of Google for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Sustainability and solutions for addressing a climate crisis had been a long-term focus for Google and its AI arm, DeepMind, says Brittin. He pointed to global projects such as sequencing traffic lights to reduce pollution and using Google Maps to find fuel-efficient routes as examples. Others, though, have raised concerns that the AI revolution Google is causing great environmental damage, one academic calling it an enormous extractive industry for the 21st century, with all the servers requiring electricity being used all the time. Google and climate initiatives, that is something that will make you go, Back to you, Nathan.
All right, so Mr. Brittin was speaking as Google is working on a joint research partnership with the University of Cambridge. As a part of this, the tech giant is to provide a grant for the university's new Center of Human-Inspired AI area, where academic and scientists from Cambridge and Google will come together and work to help keep our environment safe. A long-term agreement will focus on a number of areas, including robotics, healthcare, and climate change. The partnership comes ahead of the UK's AI Safety Summit that's going to be happening next week. At the time, the government hopes some of the biggest names in the industry will convene. It's been kind of an interesting aspect if you think about this. AI is something that Google's been working on for quite a long time. Now, what Google goes out and points out to is that AI is around us everywhere. We've been using it to help airplanes land. We have them to help do routes. And essentially, Google's DeepMind is just going to work with all of the great engineering experts at Cambridge University. What do you think about this, Mark?
I was wondering why this was our top story today.
What were you wondering why that?
Yeah, it's a big publicity announcement by Google trying to jump up in the AI race.
Okay. Well, that's a good point. That's exactly. So they're lagging really behind right now, right? I mean, so you have Microsoft, which used ChatGPT, which is way ahead with the new communications. You can talk to it. You can have it respond to you and such. So you think this is just a PR stunt by Google, or do you think that they want to work?
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm wrong, but my first reaction was this was a corporate smokescreen. They're throwing some money at people to try and get some other people working to help them advance.
So you think that they don't have the expertise enough. So that a lot of tech companies do this, right? So a lot of tech companies will go out to Harvard. I know Microsoft sponsors tons of initiatives at Harvard.
Yes.
And so that they will get the expertise at Harvard, and then they'll partner with Microsoft, who gets the royalties and licensings of all these. That's what the way that this works,
so
right?
Let's not put it out there that they're trying to do good for the world. They're trying to get royalties and money.
Okay, well, that's
no
good.
different than
They said they're doing good.
And drug companies that fund their own studies. It's pure profit.
So we're both on the same page on that.
I guess we are.
Okay,
I'm surprised.
Okay, there you go. No, that doesn't surprise me. Okay, all right.
I hope it's not true. Let's just say that.
Okay, well, they put out the big press, and this got big deal in the European nation of, look at this. One company is helping us. They want to partner with us, and I don't think Google. Google sells our data. They've been selling it for years, just as Facebook does also. I don't know how this is something that, yay, let's get excited about. But It was out there. It's a breaking news story. This will get a lot of press in the next couple of weeks, and everybody's going to be like, oh, Google's the hero.
So is Microsoft going to come out and do something with Oxford now?
Probably, or Harvard or some of these other places. Yeah, they're going to come on out and say, hey, well, we're doing a big AI type of deal too. So we can get all these young kids in these programs to create new concepts for us so we can steal them and then license those as corporate entities.
So this is a story when it first comes out I'm not excited about. This is something I want to visit in 6 months or to a year and then see where it's at.
We'll see if they saw that program going on by then. That's a good thing. All right, story number 2. Mark, you're up.
Oh, the EU boss tells Musk, Zuckerberg, and TikTok chief that misinformation will no longer be tolerated.
Oh, wow.
I like this story.
Okay,
now,
so
this is one that gets me excited.
Okay.
So it's not letting these American tech companies run amok.
Okay.
So the top European official has fired off letters to all the top social media executives: Mark Zuckerberg, which is Facebook, Elon Musk, which is X, and Xu Zichu, which is TikTok.
Okay.
And over the flood of misinformation on their platform related to the Israel-Hamas war. And he's warning that EU laws can impose severe financial penalties if the spread of falsehood goes unchecked. So it's not really saying you guys are doing something spreading misinformation, but you're allowing that spread of misinformation to happen. And it's your responsibility to make sure that does not occur because of the EU law known as Digital Services Act, or the DSA.
Okay.
Now, what I find the most interesting part of this whole article is the reaction by each company. Kind of talks about their corporate culture. So you want to take some guesses?
No, I don't. What is their corporate? I'm sure they're all going to say that they're doing the best that they can, right?
Well,
I mean,
no, because that's okay. Let's start off with TikTok.
Okay.
So TikTok says, they're about the youth constantly adding feature sets, right?
Yep.
And keep pushing the envelope. So their reaction was very similar. They said, here's a list of steps that we have done to protect people, and we are now adding features to do more protection. So here's new feature A, B, C, D.
Okay. That makes sense.
Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg says, we are committed to doing security and not spreading wealth, and we're going to put a committee together and look at this. And
they love their committees.
They
right?
love
volunteer committees, the committee to make sure if we ban somebody, we have people on that. Everything's a round robin committee type of.
It's a way of saying you're doing something by doing nothing.
Okay.
And then
what did X say?
He says, we're an open platform, so kind of I don't care what you say.
Okay.
And prove that I'm doing anything of spreading misinformation.
Okay. Well,
and they're like, all right, here's a letter of all your stuff.
And did that come from Elon, or did that come from
no,
their
that was
CEO?
Elon. No, that was Elon.
Oh, Elon. Okay.
That was Elon. So now these violations, they're pretty severe in Europe. They can go up to 6% of the tech's global revenue. So for Facebook or Meta, that's multi-billion-dollar penalty. And for X and TikTok, that's hundreds of millions of dollars each that they can be fined.
Okay.
And this information, though, is wreaking havoc on the social media platforms. That's why they're really jumping in. So here's some things that have been going on that the EU has called out.
Okay.
So this include video game footage shared as it was real video depicting the Middle East.
Of tanks being blown up and planes. Yeah, this is like the hot thing now. They'll go into these War of Tank games and these War of Sea games, and they're all these free games, and they're very realistic looking.
Very much.
Just kind of like the flight simulators. And so they'll simulate something, and then they'll record that, and then they'll make it look grainy and say this is what happened.
That's right. And then there's false claims about an Israeli commander being kidnapped, a doctored White House memo, which we know how dangerous those kind of things can be. And then a footage from Guatemala in 2015 claimed to show an Israeli woman being attacked in Gaza, but it was in totally different content.
So
they just took old video and they just relabeling it and claiming.
And then they run it on the air.
That's
and then
correct.
they allow that to be shared out on the platforms.
Yep, that's correct. And then it ended up, not only did they send the notes for all three and put them all on notice, they sent specific notices. They followed up even more so with Facebook, because that's been known to spread or allow the spread of misinformation in the past.
Because it is the biggest social media platform.
And they warn them with the coming up of the elections in Poland and the Netherlands that they need to be on top of their game. Otherwise, they're going to be watched very closely.
Okay, that's good. I mean, if you get a big fine and you have to pay it and you're not being watched, you know what? I don't know how X is going to figure that out with their 7 employees. So, I mean, that's going to be pretty difficult to do, but I think the other people should be.
They'll just deny everything.
That's right. All right, well, let's go on to story number 2. Microsoft completes the $69 billion takeover of Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard. We've talked about the story 3 times on the air so far this year. The games industry's biggest deal ever is final. Let's go to our Tech Time Tom Geiken for more on the story.
Microsoft completes $69 billion takeover of Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard. This is the gaming industry's biggest purchase deal ever. It comes as Microsoft, which owns the Xbox gaming console, was given the green light for the global deal after UK regulators approved it. Microsoft's Phil Spencer said securing Activision was incredible. Whether you play on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, or mobile, you are welcome here, and will remain welcome, because when everyone plays, we all win. We believe our news today will unlock a world of possibilities for more ways to play. I cannot wait to hear what Nick talks about today on the show. Back to you in the studio.
Wow. Well, Tom's excited about Nick being on also. All right. Microsoft is paying cash for Activision at a premium price of $95 per share in an all-cash buyout. That's a lot. That's so no financing. Somebody bought Twitter with financing, but this is an all-cash deal that's being paid out for. Now, Mr. Kotick, Activision's outgoing chief of executive, is essentially getting a payday of, guess how much? $400 million as a payday of leaving.
I would have thought a little more for a company of that. Well,
but he's not the founder. He's just essentially the chief executive officer.
Oh,
so he didn't find. He didn't find
a golden parachute.
And
all right,
you know what?
Right.
Of course, the chairman Brian Kelly, he's earning $100 million. So I guess he got a little bit less based on the share values that they own. Under the restructured agreement, though, Microsoft has agreed to transfer the rights to stream Activision games from the cloud services on Activision to Ubisoft for 15 years. So it's going to a competitor. Ubisoft is now going to be able to stream the games from the cloud. Ubisoft is not a part of Activision, but that's what Microsoft had to concede in the European Union instead of Microsoft hosting it for them to have this. Now, after 15 years, I'm sure Microsoft's going to take the reins back. Ubisoft will not have these games, but that's where you can get them from now. Microsoft is hopeful to take over will boost demand for its Xbox console and enable the tech firm to add more titles to its Xbox Game Pass services. They bought it for the licensing. So Activision has 3 of the most popular games are out there. The Call of Duty. Activision is phenomenal in their role-playing games that they have out there. And so they are looking for grade A titles. And Microsoft did this when they bought Bungie, which was the first creator of Halo and the very original Xbox. I know because that was the days I worked at Microsoft. And so Microsoft ended up going out. The studio was really good, and they bought Bungie. Bungie came in and worked at Microsoft for a couple of years, and they said, hey, you guys are stifling us too much. Ended up going and leaving, and Bungie created its own business again, separate, and then studio, I think it's 56 or 456, something.
That was back in the days where you could, because they weren't a monopoly yet.
Correct.
So is your take on, are you positive about this, or are you slightly negative about this merger?
So, you know what? Microsoft hasn't had they have rare studios that they kind of an A title producer, but Sony has a lot of A title game manufacturers on their platforms that do exclusives first. So I actually think, and the reason this got approved is I think it kind of balances out some of Sony's first party agreements that they have, so Microsoft can get some good first party agreements. So I don't think it makes any difference in the consumer market for video games. If you produce a good video game, people will buy it. If you produce a bad video game, nobody buys it. Doesn't matter what studio's behind it, you have to produce a quality game.
Right. I agree with that. But where have my concerns about this is that Microsoft has not been known to be that innovative in this space.
Yep.
And so, like you said, they're buying it for 3 main titles. That are they just going to replay and rehash, and it's going to stop the innovation from that company? And now that them and Sony have a huge monopoly, it's harder for new young upstarts to come in with new innovative games. So the more you consolidate, the less innovation you have.
If Microsoft needs to leave the studio alone, so they have to buy it as a part of their conglomerate, bring it into all the great things that Microsoft offers, which they do have some of the best training that I've ever had in my life when I was there training for managers, senior level people. Fantastic. So you can bring in those. Activision and Blizzard was getting in trouble with their employee personnel issues, kind of being an all boys club type of deal. So Microsoft will put a stop to that immediately.
That's good news.
So that'd be good. I actually don't think it's going to make that much difference in the industry at all. I just think it's just Microsoft has a lot of money to spend, and so they decide to spend it. They're still trying to buy a social media platform that they can't seem to buy, so they decided to buy some video game. Phil Spencer, the leader of Xbox right now, is a pretty smart guy, and I believe he'll let Activision kind of do its own thing and just say, here's some benefits, get us some good games.
Okay. Well, I hope that's the outcome, because you want to keep that innovative. You want to make sure there's not too much of a monopoly, because that's less opportunities for people for employment, innovation, growth.
Microsoft's good with
upstarts.
system and processes, so they may help them be a little bit more structured, which could suffer. But 15 years is a long time in technology, so they got 15 years of this kind of handcuffs of what they need to do. So we'll see what happens there.
All right.
Well, you know what? That ends our top stories of the week. Moving on, we have major disruptions going on in the war with Israel and Hamas, from cyber attacks to personal social media accounts being hacked and death scenes and other items being broadcast across personal social media. We're going to explore this and more on our next segment, Ask the Expert with Nick Espinoza. You're listening to Tech Time with Nathan Mumm. We'll be back after this commercial break.
This is Mark
and Greg
for Copiers Northwest
with a terrific offer
called Printer Care Plus.
It's simple. Buy HP printer cartridges from Copiers Northwest and we'll service your current printers for free.
That sounds too good to be true.
It's made possible due to our HP Copiers Northwest relationship.
Copiers Northwest is an HP Platinum partner,
one of only 2 in the entire Northwest.
And now with Printer Care Plus,
Copiers Northwest will provide free printer service
as long as they purchase genuine HP cartridges from Copiers Northwest.
That's right. IT departments no longer have to service printers
or fix paper jams with Printer Care Plus.
They can focus on more strategic initiatives
and let our experienced technicians keep their HP printers up and running.
Sounds like a love relationship for IT departments.
Don't get too carried away. So how do they get more details on Printer Care Plus?
Call Copiers Northwest today, 206-282-1200, or visit copiersnw.com.
Copiers Northwest. New ideas, new solutions.
Well, welcome back to Tech Time with Nathan Mumm. Tech Time is a weekly hour technology show that talks about current technology in a simple format without having to geek out. Brought to you by myself, Nathan Mumm, and Mark Gregoire. We just had our first whiskey tasting during the break. And Mark, tell us, what are we sipping in our pick of the day today?
All right. Well, it's a mouthful today. It's Bernheim Original Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey Batch A223.
Wow, A223. Is there an A221? A222?
We can. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So that's the designation. So A means first batch,
okay,
like A batch, B batch. 2 means the month it was released in February, and 23 is the year.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That makes
Good question.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Now, for them, they only release 2 batches a year, so you're not going to get a bunch of numbers.
Okay. So tell me what we're actually the sip of it is really good. I felt a little bit of cinnamon there, maybe some caramel. What do you got in here?
All right. Well, from their website, this extension to the Bernheim brand means you are now enjoying a premium wheat whiskey at full barrel proof. Like the original, Bernheim Barrel Proof is produced at the Bernheim Distillery and is the first wheat whiskey to use winter wheat as its primary grain, giving it a soft, sweet flavor that's extra smooth. Released twice a year, each offering is aged for 7 to 9 years in open-air rickhouses. This is a chance to experience this unique wheat mash bill in its pure form, non-chill filtered and bottled at barrel proof. Buttery notes of caramel and honey with clove spice, finishing soft and complex.
I didn't read any of that stuff, so I knew I could
not.
taste the caramel. I could taste, so that I can taste that. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is from Heaven Hill. The Bernheim Distillery is in Kentucky. So wheat whiskey is a classification, and we'll talk about that a little bit during the mumbles, why it's considered a wheat whiskey and not a bourbon or something other than that.
Okay.
It's aged 7 to 9 years, as we mentioned. It's 118.8 proof. It's 51% wheat, 30% corn, and 12% malted barley. The price is $65, though it does go on the secondary market for around $100 or up to $100.
I was just thinking we need to do a live show on the Kentucky. Go back into Kentucky and just go to all these whiskey places and just do a show each week at each one of these locations.
It'd be
Take,
great
like,
and not very comprehensive. So, quick thanks to Lee at QSC in Pine Lakes, Sammamish, Washington, for helping me procure this bottle.
Okay. All right. Well, with our first whiskey tasting completed, let's move on to our feature segment. We have our technology expert, Nick Espinoza, joining the show. He's an expert in cybersecurity and network infrastructure. Nick Espinoza has consulted with clients ranging from small business to the Fortune 100 level. In 1998, at the age of 19, Nick founded Windy City Networks, later acquired in 2015. He then created Security Fanatics, where he is the chief security fanatic. Let's welcome Nick to our video stream to start our next segment.
Welcome to the segment we call Ask the Experts, with our TechTime Radio expert, Nick Espinoza.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for being here. I hear you're maybe a little under the weather. Is that correct?
Yeah, just a titch. 2 weeks ago, I was in Southeast Asia for a job, and I came back from Cambodia, spent some time in the jungle, and now I got some kind of bug. It hasn't gone away in like 10 days. So here we are.
Did you get malaria by chance? Be careful.
So
be careful.
Interestingly enough, that's what they think I might have, but they haven't been able to confirm it yet. So
I used to live in Africa, and I cannot give blood because I did contract malaria when I was over there also. So it's kind of an interesting gig, Nick. But you know what?
Yeah.
If you do get it, there's a positive sign of it. Once you start getting well, is it is always actively in your system working. So the chances of you then getting sick afterwards are much lower because your immune system is always cooking. Now it may take 10 years off your life, but I don't know. So for me, that's okay. I don't need to be 95.
Yeah.
I can die at 80, 85. I'm still good.
Yeah, the last 10 years of your life are crappy anyway, right?
So there you go. So I gave you some medical advice that I learned
All
back
good.
in the day. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
We
dive
got
in.
another war going on. You know what? I guess this needs the newest thing now. If we got cyber attacks going on, and then we have wars happen, and then now though, Nick, this is getting disturbing because this looks like a whole new level of cyber attacks in the war that we have going on here. We got Hamas and Israel that if anybody hasn't heard, they're at war with each other. Very sad. Horrific videos that were a part of the Hamas attack that originally started this, and there's music festivals being interrupted and just people, innocent people that were killed. But now in the cybersecurity area here over the last few weeks, we have some troubling items here. We have Hamas hijacked victims, social media accounts being used to spread terror, and other items. Can you explain to everybody what's going on this and kind of give us the full details?
Yeah. I mean, here we go. World War III Part 2. So if anything, I think both Ukraine and this entire Israel-Hamas-Palestine situation are really underscoring that essentially the landscape that what we consider is the concept of war is changing, because everybody with a mobile phone and a social media account essentially becomes a journalist of some kind, right? And so thanks to basically this situation now that we're seeing with Israel and Hamas, it's no different. It's exacerbating that. And so basically, obviously, we know that when Hamas, for lack of a better term, invaded across the border of Israel, they took hostages. And people being people, they tend to have mobile phones on them, and those mobile phones tend to have social media accounts that are permanently logged in. And so Hamas ended up starting to force their hostages to start live streaming on their own Facebook accounts or Twitter accounts or TikTok or whatever they have, and posting messages. And so given that these are obviously Israeli hostages, these videos are now being seen inside Israel, because a lot of Israelis are going to have social media networks of friends and family all across Israel, as well as followers. And so that's essentially what we're seeing. It's psychological warfare 101. And, to your earlier point, when you were talking about Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever they're calling themselves next week, having to regulate for things like fake news, disinformation, all that kind of stuff. This is the core of the issue. They've all cut their safety and ethics teams to the bone. And so this is all reactive. They cannot keep up with this. They cannot find this stuff fast enough. And so we're going to continue to see an explosion of this. But they're literally taking hostages and putting them on their own social media accounts to tell their friends and family what is going on, in the words of Hamas. It's absolutely crazy. It really is.
It's a whole new level. I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't think of that, right? I'm at a music festival. I probably had my phone out and I'm videotaping
Oh, yeah.
me dancing around, having a good time, and all of a sudden somebody comes on and invades. I'm not thinking of going into my phone and social media wise logging out of my account, right? So I don't know how to
Right.
get back into it. Now all of a sudden I throw all my phones into a big pile in the middle of this area, and
Right.
the captives then take that information and then they just start using those phones as
Yeah.
it's it's
Right.
it's 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 it's
Right.
horrible. It's horrible.
Exactly. Well, as we advise people traveling to hostile regions in terms of cyber hygiene, one of the things we tell them is kill face or kill FaceTime, not FaceTime, the Face ID, kill biometrics of all kinds, because your phone can literally be held up to your face and somebody like an attacker or a hostage taker can take it. So a lot of people don't have this. And when you're talking about hitting, I don't know, the Israeli version of Burning Man or whatever that was, you're talking about young people who are traditionally ensconced in social media and technology. That's the world they grew up in. And so having that leveraged against them, to basically show their friends and family. I mean, could you imagine being a parent, seeing your like 20-something-year-old kid as a hostage live streaming on their social media account? It's mind boggling to me, but that's literally where we're at right now with this. It's absolutely terrifying, which is the point.
That's devastating. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about this next thing regarding the war here. We had these fake red alerts, these rocket alert app that essentially was sent out as a kind of a spam thing saying, hey, everybody click on this. And if I'm in the middle of war and I'm getting a text that's coming on in and says, hey, we want to make sure you download this red alert rocket app. You know what? I myself probably would struggle with making sure and verifying that it's from a legitimate source. I'm probably going to download it immediately so I can get it, because I'm not thinking, hey, do I need to make sure it's verifiable? Is it from a publisher? So explain what happened here on this Android spyware.
Yeah. So this is not a new thing whatsoever, but obviously it's new just given the unfolding situation right now, in Israel and Gaza. But to be very clear, Rocket Alerts itself is a legitimate open source app used by Israeli citizens across that nation to basically receive quick alerts on incoming rocket attacks. And if you're living in Israel, that's kind of an important thing. We've seen similar things happen with like air quality apps in China as well, having this same problem. Now, the app is very popular. It's got over 1 million downloads in Google Play. But essentially, since Hamas launched their attack in southern Israel last week, involving thousands of rockets, obviously people that didn't have it are looking for this. And so a malicious version of this came out on a website, redalerts.me, which fortunately is down now, but could pop up anywhere else because it's very easy to create a website, as you know. And so that was actually created on October 12th. Of this year, and basically includes 2 buttons to say, hey, quickly download the app for iPhone or Android. Now, the iPhone one goes nowhere because this is specifically an Android issue. But if you are essentially downloading this fake app, it is actually giving you the rocket alerts, like the actual legitimate app, but it's also going through everything, including accessing your contacts, your phone numbers, your text messages, lists of installed software. It's getting your phone IMEI, the unique identifier in it, logged in email accounts, all this kind of stuff. Basically, it's there to spy on you, to scrape information while giving you a legitimate service. And so the user that's installing this and running this is seeing what they're supposed to see. So he or she thinks it's legit, when in the background, it's gathering a whole bunch of stuff. And as we know, hacking has been rather prolific. It's about a 5-to-1 ratio of pro-Palestinian hacking groups versus Israeli hacking groups right now. And so we're going to continue to see these kinds of problems left and right as this continues to unfold, especially if Israel actually does, roll tanks into Gaza. I think it's going to get 10 times worse.
So, Nick, do we know exactly who is behind this specific app that we released it and is doing the hacking?
So we're not 100% sure, but there's a lot of material support being linked to Hamas right now. Even one of their largest adversaries in the region, Palestine Islamic Jihad, apparently is playing very nice. If you heard about them in the news today, they may have been the ones that launched that rocket at the hospital accidentally, as opposed to the Israelis. We're not sure. But there's a lot of groups providing support in the essential Islamism, extremism area right now. And so Iranian hackers are on the job as well. From what we've heard, ISIS also has a hand in this. So who specifically created this one, we're not 100% sure, but the indicators of compromise are appearing to be a group outside of Hamas right now themselves. And Hamas obviously has other things to look at, and so they're taking all the help that they can get right now.
All right. Well, it's interesting, right? Because we still have that Russia-Ukraine conflict going on.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
There's still hacking going on with there. I mean, there's it's sad to say that they're not the headline news because there's a whole bunch of radio stations and airways that have been taken offline. I mean, it's just so much hacking that is going on. When you go to war nowadays, you essentially have to have an IT team of experts behind you because of the misinformation and everything that needs to be taken care of. It's amazingly different than what it would have been 15 or 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And to that point, people say, World War III started with the invasion of Ukraine. And my response is World War III started years ago before that because of all the hacking. We just don't see people getting shot in the streets. And so we don't consider it warfare, but it's been that way. And interestingly enough, a lot of intelligence agencies are actually potentially linking Russia to Hamas right now because Hamas leadership met with Russian leadership in Moscow in March. Russians have met with the Iranians and the Syrians. As a result, Hezbollah on the north side of the border of Syria and the Golan Heights in Israel now is looking like it's ramping up. And so is there any kind of coordination or conspiracy between Russia and all of them? Again, it's speculation right now, but there's a lot of evidence to show that maybe this was more coordinated than simply Hamas just figuring out very astute ways to get into Israel. So we're going to see
our last story here. We're going to try to end on a little bit of a brighter subject.
Sure.
I don't know if it's
you don't bring me in for bright. You don't bring me in for bright.
So we got FTX thief cashes out millions during the Bankman-Fried trial. Explain the background here, what's going on. So there's a bunch of stuff stolen. Get everybody up to date. We talked about this previously. FTX had a bunch of cryptocurrency that disappeared. No one knew where it was at. What's going on now?
Yeah. So, this is essentially the hot mess express when it comes to cryptocurrency. If anything, it really underscores just how unstable cryptocurrency is compared to like a standard currency like the dollar. But if you recall, as you mentioned, FTX, one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, they went bankrupt in November of 2022, and billions of dollars basically went missing because why not? Fraud to the end, right? So basically on the literal day that FTX collapsed, hundreds of millions of dollars of cryptocurrency controlled by that exchange essentially was stolen by an unidentified thief. And obviously you can speculate as to who would have access to this. Nobody knows basically who did this or how they were able to get the digital keys, but it's possible that it's an insider job. Obviously, that would be the first stop given this. But interestingly enough, if you read the report from the government on the actual security controls of FTX, there were no security controls. They were leaving keys like in Slack messages and like notepads. I mean, if you were able to get in, it would be very easy to find this kind of information. And so with that backdrop, over a few hours on that day, basically hundreds of other crypto assets were taken from various aspects of the company, and it totaled about $477 million. And then they started basically sending chunks of this to mixers. Now, a mixer is essentially where you go to switch up transaction trails for cryptocurrency. So it obfuscates the transactions. It's harder to trace, but there are companies out there that are getting very good at that. And so they're now starting to trace this. That, interestingly enough, led to a possible connection to Russian cybercrime, because a lot of the tactics that they were using are very paralleled with the ransomware gangs that take and know how to launder this stuff or mix this stuff very well. And so we're going to see what happens here. If I had to put money on it, I would think that Sam Bankman-Fried himself, this is my opinion, probably stole it, or one of his higher ups for it if he's being monitored. And so when he gets out of prison in, 10 years, depending on what his lawyer's able to get him, then he's walking away with a lot of money. But
that makes sense.
Again, who knows, right? For all I know, it is the Russians. They got a war to fund. So I couldn't tell you.
All right, Nick, always a pleasure having you on the show.
I was going to say, if anybody's really, really interested in following this in the trial, Michael Lewis has a great podcast going on where he's doing almost daily updates on it.
On this also?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is interesting.
Nick, tell us, where can people find out more information about you? How can they get in contact with you? If they need a security expert to come on in and take an analysis of their environment, they may have been hacked or had a compromise, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, hopefully they'll contact before we get hacked, because the number one call we get is, oh my God, help, the world is burning down. the never worked with you. The second call is I don't want to be that guy. And you want to be that guy that says, I don't want to be that guy. But no, feel free to find me on LinkedIn at /Nick Espinoza or, YouTube /Nick Espinoza or Nick A ESP on X/Twitter. And yeah, come hang out. Come say hi.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being a part of our show, Nick.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
All right. That ends our segment, Ask the Expert with Nick Espinoza. Up next, we have This Week in Technology. So now would be a great time to enjoy a little whiskey on the side, as we will be doing so during our break. You're listening to TechTime Radio with Nathan Mumm. See you in a few minutes.
How to See a Man About a Dog. It combines darkly comic short stories, powerful poems, and pulp fiction prose to create a heartbreaking and hilarious journey readers will not soon forget. Read How to See a Man About a Dog, collected writings, for free with Kindle Unlimited. Ebook available on Kindle, print copies available on Amazon The Bookpository, and more.
And now, let's look back at this week in technology.
All right. October 17th, 1907. We have Giulio Marconi opened the first commercial transatlantic wireless telegraph service. The service ran between Nova Scotia and Ireland. Marconi, an Italian inventor and electrical engineer, known for his creation of the practical radio waves-based wireless telegraph system. This led to Marconi being credited as the inventor of radio, and was the 1909 Nobel Prize winner and founder of the Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company in the United Kingdom in 1897. Marconi essentially is very important in the production of radio waves that we are using today to broadcast our show out there. He did shortwave radio aspects later, and he was an engineer, gadgeter that would
he just wasn't any old engineer. He was an electrical engineer. Those are the best.
Those are the best.
Those are the best.
Is that what you're saying? Because you have your electrical engineering degree? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. There you go. Well, that was This Week in Technology. Thanks, Mark.
You're
Have you
welcome.
ever wanted to watch some Tech Time history with over 3 years of video, podcasts, and blog information? You can visit techtimeradio.com to watch our older shows or join the Tech Timer Facebook group and talk with us live all the time. David S. was a smart individual, and he decided to join that. And I think he's gotten probably at least a couple $1,000s worth of advice for free. So there you go. Join our Tech Timer group. It's Tech Timers on Facebook. All right. Now we're going to take a commercial break. But when we come on back, we have our Mark Mumble Whiskey Review and our Technology Fail of the Week. See you after this break.
Hello, my name is Arthur, and my life's work is connecting people with coffee. Story Coffee is a small batch specialty coffee company that uses technology to connect people to each product resource, which allows farmers to unlock their economic freedom. Try our Medium Roast Founder Series coffee, which is an exotic bourbon variety that is smooth, fresh, and elegant at storycoffee.com. That's STORI coffee.com. Today you can get your first bag free when you subscribe at storycoffee.com with code TechTime. That's STORI coffee.com.
The segment we've been waiting all week for. Mark's Whiskey Mumble.
All right.
All right, Nathan. So celebrating your 175th episode on October 17th. What else is being celebrated out there in the world today?
Oh, boy. I do not know.
It is National Pasta Day.
Hey, I like pasta.
Yeah. Pasta was brought to America by the early Spanish settlers, but it wasn't popular until Thomas Jefferson made a trip to Paris and fell in love with macaroni, which at the time was any pasta shape.
Okay.
Years later, when large groups of Italian immigrants moved from Italy to America, pasta became a staple and obtainable meal in the United States.
We're just all about Italians today on our show.
We are.
There you go. Okay.
And as we wrap up talking about pasta, we are not done talking about wheat, though.
Okay.
Which pasta is made from.
It is.
See how that's connected?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to figure that out?
A few hours.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So by definition, wheat whiskey is similar to the definition of bourbon whiskey, except that it swaps bourbon's minimum 51% corn requirement for a minimum 51% wheat requirement.
I like wheat better.
Unlike bourbon, wheat whiskey does not need to be a product of the United States.
Oh.
Like bourbon, to be labeled straight wheat whiskey, it must be aged in new charred oak containers for at least 2 years and a product of a single state.
Okay.
So very similar.
Okay.
Now, wheat whiskeys are generally known to be lighter body, mellow, and bring that sweetness.
They do. It's a little sweet. I kind of like my
Yeah.
flavored whiskeys, right? I'm a flavored whiskey guy.
And
This is not flavored, but it does have a sweeter taste.
Yeah, so today we're drinking the Bernheim Original Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey Batch A223, and that brings that delicious sweetness here, but at a higher proof than most other wheat whiskeys.
Okay.
The sweetness comes in the form of, for me, honey, maple syrup, confectioner's sugar, wrapped up in a newly baked cinnamon roll with a bit of baking spices to balance the flavor.
I'm hungry.
If you're used to other whiskeys, this brings a different flavor profile that is quite enjoyable.
It is.
And it's willing for a try, I think, for everybody to try a good wheat whiskey.
So is this kind of a high-end wheat whiskey or a midline wheat whiskey? Because I'm a value guy. So if I can get this is like $60 bottle.
$65 if you can find it.
Find it. Okay. Is wheat whiskey in that $35, $65 range?
No. Good. I mean, this is barrel proof. So
Okay.
barrel proof is always going to jump it up.
Correct.
So
All right.
it's if you can find it for $65, that's pretty good for a barrel proof wheat whiskey that's aged 7 to 9 years.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Whiskey and technology. What a great pairing. Just like the pairing of cartoon duos, Tom and Jerry. Right, Mark?
I was not a Tom and Jerry's fan.
Oh, you weren't?
No,
Oh,
my
okay.
wife loved them, I believe, but
Okay.
I did not.
All right, let's get ready for our technology fail of the week. Brought to you by Elite Executive Services, technology experts to help you out of a technology fail.
We are out of time. Congratulations. You're a failure.
Oh, I failed. Did I?
Yes.
Did I?
Yes.
Did I?
Yes.
All right, we were just talking about cartoons there, right?
Yes,
so
you
this
were.
week's technology fail comes to us from Microsoft Bing. Microsoft removes Bing Chat AI image generator after Mickey Mouse 9/11 picture surfaces. We explain exactly, though, what happened and the way it was created. Last week, Microsoft rolled out its new AI-powered image generator featuring its Bing search engine, and it's already been cut off. The new AI-powered image generator is powered by DALL-E 3, an image creator algorithm designed by OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. The new algorithm was implemented into Bing search engine last week, and the results of Microsoft now has overcorrected and put guardrails in place that were not originally there.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Mouse was pictured hijacking a plane, officially called Mickey Mouse caused 9/11. The user that created this image got around Microsoft ban of the keywords 9/11. So they had bans for 9/11, Twin Towers, by putting in the AI and using some of their own logic themselves. They decided to first look for Mickey sitting in a cockpit of a plane. Then they changed that to Mickey sitting in a cockpit to the plane flying toward two tall skyscrapers. Then there was the addition of adding a gun into Mickey's hand, which then resulted in an image that looked much like the World Trade Center's hijacking of a plane itself. Now, Bing's chat image generation should have not been able to generate Mickey Mouse. That's a licensed character to begin with. So forget all the other aspects that they have. AI generators should have the ability to say that that image is not able to be done. If you use other AI images such as Discord's Journey, which is what I use for AI image creation, if I try to put in a licensed character, it'll actually come back and say not available to use. So you have to use other words to get around it. I tried making a seven dwarf that was a drinky instead of grumpy, and so I kind of come up with a cool looking dwarf that was kind of like, but it did have no connotation to the original seven dwarfs of the Disney prolific story itself of Snow White.
So when we talk about this as a technology fail, because I know a lot of people would think of it as, well, Mickey flying into Twin Towers, which is a horrific kind of image.
Yep.
Was that the fail, or is the fail more that they're able to use licensed images and or the reaction that Microsoft did after, which
Well, I think
you haven't quite got
I
to?
think in this you have two fails. So one, Microsoft should have just said, you know what, this is how this was generated. We're going to do steps to correct this. They shouldn't have pulled down their whole AI generating platform for this. So there was an overreaction, in my opinion, on the fail that they had there too. Second of all, the fail with the Chat GPT engine to generate a licensed character like Mickey Mouse. Now, Mickey Mouse has like one arm that looks normal, and the other arm looks like it's 5 feet long. So it doesn't quite look like Mickey Mouse, but the red outfit was there and everything else that made it too close. That is a fail on the AI support aspect of being able to create a licensed character.
Yeah, I agree with you on that because it's there's no way AI or any kind of manufacturer can anticipate what humans are going to do. You know,
Correct.
if Mike was here, he'd say, people are going to be people.
Yep.
And they're always going to try and get around the rules and make crass stuff and go over that. Not just go into the gray line, but go over the gray line.
Yep.
You can't always prevent that. So that's not really where the fail at this point was.
No, it was kind of both Microsoft pulling it and having the licensed characters. Now, right now, we normally go to a Mike's mesmerizing moment, but Mike's not here, so we're going to head right into our Nathan Nugget of the week.
Yay. More time for Nathan Nugget.
That's right.
This is your Nugget of the Week.
All right, so this is an article that struck really at home to me because I am probably one of the worst offenders of this article itself. Do you know that nearly 500 million small electronics such as cables, lights, mini fans, disposable vapes are thrown away last year from the research company Material Focus? Essentially, the fast tech items, which electronics are known as items of smaller areas of not necessarily being able to be used immediately, but would be purchased on a instant moment, are cluttering people's houses, cluttering people's we want to say studios. And then essentially what happens is we don't do anything about it. And when we decide to clean it all up, we throw it in the trash and decided to dispose of it through the regular garbage waste system, which is killing our environment. Because do you realize that 260 million disposable vapes, most of that items in those could be recyclable?
It adds up quickly.
Including 3 million LED solar decorative lights, 26 million cables, 10 million USB sticks, 7 million cordless headphones, and 5 million mini fans. And I know my wife has at least 5 of those mini fans around the house right now. Yeah. Essentially what happens is these contain valuable materials such as copper wires, lithium batteries, and other items that should be properly recycled at a recycling station. So you should not be throwing that in your trash. You should be throwing that into your recycle bin or taking it to your disposable place and recycling it in the bins there.
You're preaching to the choir. So I moved, as you know, about a year ago.
Yep.
And so we didn't being a tech person, we had a lot of technology that was both old, new, and broken. And I went through every single one, figured out whether it was usable, not usable. The ones that were usable, I found a place to donate those to. And the ones that were unusable, I brought it to a recycle place.
You're a good person.
I
have cables.
Well, that was prodding by my better half.
Oh, okay. I have lots of cables, but I don't throw away anything. So at least I'm a good offender where I haven't thrown it necessarily away. But if you do need 7,000 floppy disk items, all you got to do is go onto eBay and look for 3.25 floppy disks that I have that I got.
Yeah, put a commercial plug in there for that.
That's right. Oh boy. So I don't want to get rid of those, the bad way of throwing those away. So go buy them.
No, and it's not just applying. I mean, this was great electronics. Nobody thinks about that. They throw them all away. But my wife, when we moved, we just had one of those tiny little trash cans.
Yeah.
We never had to go to anything larger when we moved from our roughly 3,000 square foot house. She found a way to recycle almost everything we needed to either donated it, recycled it. I mean, the kids that are now grown, we had all their old school supplies. She found a place that would take all those art supplies and school supplies.
So, especially with electronics,
blankets, and then
find a way to
on
recycle that. Put it in your recycling bin. Because if you do any research on it, most of the time that copper wires, the items in there are worth a lot of money on the recycling.
Right. And on top of that, that's those going into the groundfill or landfill. Those are the worst things to put it back into the earth the way they are. So it's not just filling up the landfill; it's putting caustic stuff into it. So
makes sense. All right, now let's head into our pick of the day.
And now our pick of the day for our whiskey tastings. Let's see what bubbles to the top.
All right, tell us about again what we're tasting.
From Lee at QFC in Pine Lake, he gave us Bernheim Original Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey Batch A223, which is from Heaven Hill. It's a wheat whiskey, aged 7 to 9 years, 118.8 proof. Roughly $65 if you can find it for that. or you can pick it up on the secondary for a little under 100.
Okay. All right. What do you? We always start with you on that side of the table first. Are you giving it a thumbs up or thumbs down?
My whiskey, it's a thumbs up.
Okay, there you go.
It's on my shelf.
Is it from you? You have this on your shelf itself.
This is my shelf.
Okay, well, that's perfect. I absolutely give even bad stuff thumbs up, but I will absolutely give this. I'm going to actually start looking for some more wheat whiskey. This was really good. I'm going to give it a thumbs up here. All right. Well, we're almost out of time. We want to thank all of our listeners for joining the program today. Listeners, if you want to learn more about us, you can join us at techtimeradio.com. Click on the Be a Caller and ask a question, or subscribe to our Tech Timers on Facebook group, and you can get lots of technical information and ask us lots of questions. For all of you listening to you, remember, the science of tomorrow starts with the technology of today. See you next week.
Later, and hit like and subscribe, please.
There you go. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Tech Time Radio. We hope that you had a chance to have that moment today in technology. The fun doesn't stop there. We recommend that you go to techtimeradio.com and join our fan list for the most important aspect of staying connected and winning some really great monthly prizes. We also have a few other ways to stay connected, including subscribing to our podcast on any podcast service, from Apple to Google and everything in between. We're also on YouTube, so check us out on youtube.com/techtimeradio, all one word. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did making it for you. From all of us at Tech Time Radio, remember, Mumm's the word. Have a safe and fantastic week.